Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to your Edpuzzle homework tonight, dealing with comparing fractions number 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and still focus on that idea of comparing fractions. But we're going to go up to the next level where it might not be as easy as it was earlier in the module. All right, so our learning targets for tonight are: I can identify common multiples, or you're going to be able to find things that go together with multiplication. I can identify equivalent common fractions, which means you're going to find fractions that equal or take up the same amount of space is another one. And your last target there is I can compare common fractions with related denominators. So you're going to be comparing fractions that have denominators that aren't the same, but they are related. All right, so when it comes to comparing fractions, I've given you two options here, or two sets. I've given you set number 1, which is 2/7 is something to 4/7. And I've given you set 2, which is 3/7 is something to 4/9. Which set, 1 or 2, which one do you feel like you could answer more effectively and you'd be confident that you're maybe right with it? Yeah, a lot of you probably said set number 1, and like we've talked about, the reason why you probably said set number 1 is you don't have numerators that are the same, but you do have denominators that are the same. And remember, if they have the same denominator, that means if they have the same denominator, that means the pieces are all the same size. I could take one of these pieces here and I could put it over here and it would match up because all of my pieces are the same size when your denominators are the same. And when that's the case, really all you have to do is figure out which one is more. Well, 4 pieces that are this size are going to be more than 2 pieces that are that size. Set number 2 is a little bit more challenging because the numerators aren't the same, neither are the denominators. Now, in the past, we've had a number line to look at or a fraction wall to look at, but we don't have that anymore. So this set could be tough because the numerators aren't the same and neither are the denominators, and we don't have models to look at. But there is another way to do it. When we can compare fractions, we can do that by making the ones with different denominators have one that's equivalent. So what that means is if I'm looking at my two fractions here, I'm trying to figure out which one's bigger. I notice my numerators aren't the same, and I notice my denominators aren't the same. So I'm not going to be able to make this easy by saying, well, my pieces are the same size. I just have to figure out which one there's more of. And I know I don't have the same number of pieces, so that's not going to help me either. But what I can do is I can make one of these an equivalent fraction to see if it makes it easier to compare. So for example, I've got 3/5 here, and I know that I can change fifths into tenths. Okay, and if I'm looking at my model here, I can do that by doubling every piece. So if I take my first piece and double it, or multiply it by 2, I can do that to my second piece, and my third piece, and the other piece in the whole, and the last piece in the whole. And when I do that, I don't have fifths anymore. Now I have tenths. That's what I want to have because when I look over here, my other denominator is a 10. So by changing or making an equivalent fraction to 3/5, I've just made this easier to compare. So what I did was I doubled my denominator because I doubled every piece I had in the whole. And when I did that, I also doubled how many were colored in. So my old fraction was 3/5, which was tough to compare to 7/10. But my new equivalent fraction that I just made is, my new fraction that I made is 6/10. I can compare 6/10 to 7/10 very easily because, like we said, now I've got denominators that are the same. So really all I have to do is go back and see which one there's more of. Well, I know 7/10 is more than 6/10. So if 7/10 is more than 6/10, 7/10 is going to also be more than 3/5 because this here is the same as this, as you can see in my picture there. So I know that 7/10 is greater than 3/5. And I did that by making an equivalent fraction for 3/5 that was easier to compare to 7/10. Okay, so I know I threw a lot at you there. I'm going to have you do a couple problems here on your own. Do your best on them. We'll go over those tomorrow during class. Have a good night. Make some more choices.